Okay, what's the phone? Okay, well, one speaker it is.
I'll have to do. How are you doing? Pretty good. How are you? Oh, no, but I remember. I might apply to be part of the research assistant.
Okay, you good?
Yeah, no, all good.
Yeah, we're able to live stream, just not on mobile.
Oh,
It's shared, it's going right now. But yeah, you can just, it should be, if you go into, yeah, totally. Share. Sure, yeah, I'll send it to you. There you go. Here, oh, here. There you go.
And then also the
Well, I just wanted to make sure that it worked. Yeah. I'm not, there's no mic, there's no audio. Oh, you can hear me? Oh, you can hear me. Sorry, I thought my audio was
8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20.
One, two, three, four. 7 and 10. Check it out. Here we are. It's a beautiful Sunday. So we should have roll 3.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Check, 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 check.
Uno, dos, tres, cuatro, cinco. Good. 6, 7, 8, 9.
Side, checking the neck. And here we are with this time.
Okay, gotcha.
Taking out the left. Check, 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 check.
Another 20 minutes.
One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 17, 18, 19, 20. One, two, three, four. Oh, take it out. How are you? Coming along.
Oh, hello.
All right, buddy. Thanks for coming along.
Hello. Checking the there. There we go. There we go.
Okay, good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming out tonight for our Learning from Kitsilano Local Focus Talk. My name is Kroeker. I'll be the MC tonight. A little bit about me. I'm currently a law student at the Howard School of Law at UBC, and I did an undergrad in geography and economics, also from UBC. I previously worked with Patrick Condon at the UBC School of Architecture and Landscape Architecture, where I conducted critical quantitative analysis of North American urban development and its relationship to housing affordability. Beyond my academic research, I've been active in Vancouver local planning discourse. Sorry? Yeah, okay. I've been active in Vancouver local planning discourse, and I've presented several times on urban development issues before Vancouver City Council. I continue to be interested in community planning and affordability issues from a legal perspective. I also enjoy doing on-the-ground legal advocacy work for tenants and for people who cannot otherwise afford legal representation. So local focus, we are a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization, and our mission is to deliver a 12-week public speaker series on neighborhood-based community planning, enriching civic dialogue ahead of Vancouver's 2026 Vancouver Municipal Election. Vancouver's legacy of neighborhood-led planning, emphasizing livability, social cohesion, and context-sensitive design, has been overshadowed by citywide growth strategies, prioritizing scale and financial yield over local needs and character. This series will attempt to recenter public understanding of neighborhood planning's potentially crucial role in addressing key challenges, crucially supporting housing affordability without compromising livability, balancing growth with infrastructure, services, and social capacity, and enhancing local democratic participation. By sparking informed, inclusive conversations, we aim to empower residents to advocate for equitable, resilient neighborhoods that honor Vancouver's historic planning strengths and build a more equitable and democratic urban future. We welcome respectful participation, as urban planning is all about community dialogue. After Penny's talk, we will have a Q&A session, and since we have limited time together tonight, we ask that you please keep your questions streamlined and appropriate in length out of fairness to other participants wishing to speak tonight. So each participant will be given 1 minute to ask a question to allow for Penny to provide a complete answer. When it becomes time to contribute to the conversation, just give me a wave and I'll try my best to get to you out there with me. Please check out on our website our donation function, and if possible, please share all our future events with friends and everyone in your network that you know, because Local Focus is completely volunteer organized and it would not be possible without you, your attendance, and your support. I'd also like to point out that next week on March 25th, we have a talk by Mike Mangan entitled Voiceless in Mount Pleasant, Towers and Death of Public Oversight. And that will be at 7 p.m. Wednesday night at the ANZA Club on 8th. And I'll talk a little bit more about that at the end as well. I have the pleasure of introducing Dr. Penny Gurstein, and her talk is entitled Learning from Kitsilano. So Dr. Penny Gurstein is a professor emeritus and former director of the School of Community and Regional Planning at the University of British Columbia. She's also the founding director of the Housing Research Collaborative at UBC, which brings together researchers, policymakers, and community partners to develop data-driven solutions for the housing crisis. Beyond her academic leadership, Dr. Gurstein is a prominent voice in our national conversation on housing affordability. You may have recently seen her work in the news, as she is one of 27 leading urban planning experts who penned an open letter to the Prime Minister and the Premier's office, outlining 6 policy musts for securing housing affordability in Canada. We are incredibly fortunate to have her here today to share her insights on the future of Kitsilano. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Penny Gurstein.
So, can you hear me? Yes, okay. So thank you for coming here. I really appreciate the interest you have in this. And also, I'm just going to talk for a very short time. And what I really want is to have a dialogue around the issues facing Kitsilano and the city. So I've been a resident of Kitsilano for 26 years, and I actually lived in Kitsilano also when I was a student. And I've really never seen, okay, yeah, that's, okay, I've never seen really such widespread apprehension about the future of the neighborhood. As we know, Kitsilano is really under intense pressure to densify. Major projects such as SNAC and high-density tower proposals under the Broadway plan, and now the just passed official development plan have caused real concern in over congestion and neighborhood character. And we are definitely in the crosshairs, given that we're an urban neighborhood, right, where all of this is now being proposed. So let's make it clear, I'm not against a density per se, but what we've always appreciated in Kitsilano is that changes have occurred that have been compatible with its spirit and its ethos. It is dense but livable. It maybe is not dense as much as other neighborhoods, but when you look at the fact that we are no longer really a single-family neighborhood, it's all been densified in some way. But this didn't occur just spontaneously, but was a result of citizens, politicians, and planners working on a neighborhood plan that was enacted upon. And so we were very fortunate. We, in the 1970s, there was some real innovations happening in Vancouver, which really made our city. Now, and I'm going to go into this later, we're losing that. But one of the really strong things that really happened, and I think I could see some of these people already know some of this, but maybe others don't. There was local area planning in Vancouver in the 1970s, which marked a really significant shift from top-down urban renewal towards, and so what it was leading to was resident-led participatory planning, largely driven by a reaction against the destruction of heritage neighborhoods, like Strathcona and the proposed freeway project, which got stopped, but also neighborhoods like Kitsilano, which was under pressure to densify. So that what happened in Kitsilano, and you can probably already, you can see it, there were some high-rise developments that really caused concern in the neighborhood. And so this is why it was so critical that we had a really robust local planning process, local area planning process. So in the mid-1970s, and that was a really long time ago, I know, the city established a formalized local area planning program to develop local plans in response to intense growth and development pressures. And local area planning offices were set up in neighborhoods, and planners prioritized community input. So this is a time when there was like this, meeting after meeting, people were really excited about, giving their input into what made their neighborhood so special. And so this period saw a rise in community activism, and also arose TEAM, which is the Electors Action Movement Party, which took power in 1972. So the TEAM Council, made up of citizens, citizen activists and academics, and so it's quite interesting that there were several academics that were on town council, including Walter Hardwick, Colleen Hardwick's father, who was a very noted geography professor. What they did was they worked really well with city planners and heeded their advice. I mean, this was really quite unique. It didn't happen before, because we had, like all other cities, we had a very, very top-down sort of bureaucratic response, so that there was a council and there was planners, but they really believed in sort of a whole general planning for a whole city rather than for neighborhoods. And what happened in Vancouver was that there was this really an amazing confluence of politicians, planners, and citizens who really saw the worth and the importance of doing, neighborhood planning in a really robust, effective way. So the central goal was to preserve existing neighborhoods against the spread of high-rise developments, which was, and this led to, some issues like downzoning of many multifamily apartments but it also led to some real innovations in how you can allow density in a way that people could absorb. And so some of the innovations, and you probably know this now, that happened during that period of time, was the redevelopment of the south side of False Creek, which it really became a model of what you can do in terms of using land, city-owned land, and in partnership with all three levels of government, and a real commitment to what they felt, what they said was 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, which is 1/3 nonprofit housing, 1/3 co-op housing, and 1/3 market housing, which was really quite revolutionary at this time. That was sort of, and it really hasn't been replicated anywhere else in Vancouver. The other thing that, sort of innovation that happened, I think, that people don't really remember is Champlain Heights, and that's which also became another really innovative neighborhood, predominantly of again nonprofit housing, co-op housing, and market housing, but with a really wonderful mix and an absolutely wonderful community. And people that I know, and actually some of my students, former students, talked about living in some, growing up in Kitsilano, growing up in False Creek, growing up in Champlain Heights, and what it was such a unique experience to really feel part of a community. So, and these kind of local area planning efforts were co-funded. So, we had real partnerships between the municipal, provincial, and federal governments. And again, when you look at False Creek, the south side of False Creek, that would not have been possible without a very strong federal presence. And in fact, at that time, federally, there was a Ministry of Municipal Affairs, which got cut in the kind of neoliberal restructuring the government went through in the 1990s. And then also what the effect of planning that occurred at that time was also at a regional level, even though we have a very loose federation of municipalities, but there was able to have agreement on livable region plan in 1975, which also led to these satellite and nucleuses within communities all across the region. So it was like a time of real innovation, but also of really significant planning that really shaped our region, our city, and our neighborhood. So, and the 1970s were also considered the era where Vancouver grew up and developed the distinct consultative approach to urban planning, which we became known for. And there's, so a key outcome of the planning in Kitsilano was the RT2 zoning. And how many people know about RT2 zoning? Not that many. Okay, so that's interesting. Which created a two-family dwelling district, permitting duplexes, character conversions, and infill, with conditional approval for low-density multiple dwellings. So as a way to sort of increase housing options. It acted as a bridge between the single family homes and denser urban RT zones. So this was, again, the only, how this occurred was through, this local area planning effort in Kitsilano that worked with community working with the city to develop something, because they recognized they needed to change, they needed to densify, but they needed to do it in a way that reflected who they were, who the neighborhood was. So following the implementation of the RT2 zoning, further changes took place in the 1980s and 1990s to create more specialized zones, such as RT4 through RT9, which aim to better manage the retention and renovation of existing character homes. While also allowing infill. So today, the RT2 zone remains a key part of Kitsilano's diverse residential mix. So, so it didn't just happen. We didn't just get a really great neighborhood by accident. We live, we're very close to the beach, we're very close to all these amenities, but the fact is, it was really good planning that did this. So what also occurred during this time is the development of strong residential associations, and Kitsilano has maintained those associations. So it's no accident that recent developments on the Broadway and West 4th Avenue corridors have been medium density, say up to 6 stories, with shops and other services mingled with residential. These associations have worked with the developers to get them to understand what the neighborhood needs. And I had a conversation with somebody who's in the West Kitsilano Resident Association, who might be here today, Jan. We were talking about this, and it really pleased me that developers knew when you go into our neighborhood, and you have to actually consult with the residents. So now we are really in a different era from the 1970s. We are back to the worst kind of top-down planning without any real insight on city building, led by politicians with a shockingly low level of civic understanding, who are not listening to their planners nor the citizens who elected them. So what can be done? I mean, we really are in a dilemma right now. This is, this is kind of the worst I've ever seen in terms of governance, city governance. We need to take back our city. Yes, right. Genuine participation requires that input actually informs and influences decision-making and builds trust. What is occurring in our city is not meaningful public participation. Decisions are already made and public input is ignored. It's become simply a requirement with no intention of incorporating public values. And I really saw this. I don't know if you've ever gone on and watched city council, and it can be very frustrating. But I've talked. They ask for people to talk. They now. This just happened with this council. They have introduced a maximum of 3 minutes to talk, to put your opinion out. And council are not allowed to ask questions. This is unbelievable. Like what kind of participation is this? So I gave a little 3-minute talk, I guess, or 2-minute opinion on when they decided to they want to stop the building of supportive housing throughout the city. There was over 100 people who were on the list to talk. There was 200 people or more outside. I mean, we sort of chanting, saying, "Don't do this." And also, there were very few people inside because they are discouraging people from actually being in the city council chambers. What they want you to do now is call in. So all these people were called in. But what had happened in that case, I just find this totally egregious. They had changed the agenda that day because they wanted to bring forward the Bitcoin, they wanted to get approval for the use of Bitcoin, which totally, messed up people's schedule. These are people who were working, who were doing other things. They had taken off time because they thought that this is when they were going to be talking, but that didn't occur. And so when it came for people to talk, there was a counselor who I won't name, but was absolutely rude, who kept saying, "Okay, is that person there? Okay, no, not there. Okay," and without even allowing that kind of, the mere participation, the little participation that we've got right now. So. So it's really easy to call citizens NIMBYs when there are justifiable, and I say it's too easy to call citizens NIMBYs when there are justifiable concerns about the impact questionable decisions will have on their communities. Nevertheless, we need to learn how to incorporate change by proactive engagement and identifying tangible benefits rather than adversarial conflict. Given that we don't have a ward system, which I think it is, we had two referendums on it and they lost because the council kept upping the percentage of people who would the percentage to approve that. It was at first at 50% and then it became 60%, which at least would have allowed elected officials who would represent particular neighborhoods. We really need to strengthen our existing neighborhood associations and start demanding accountability from those we elect. In this civic election, I urge you to ask the hard questions of candidates. I've read the statements of some of the potential council candidates, and it strikes me how little they know about how to create affordable housing. So, the catchphrase is, "Oh yes, I really want to have affordable housing in the city, but how are you going to get it? Do you know anything about housing, right?" It also strikes me that none of them mention how they would engage with their constituents. I know that it seems daunting, but to create a city for all its citizens requires a reimagining of our relationship with our neighborhood and city, and what individually and collectively you can do to develop a true civic discourse. Thank you.
Okay, we'll now have time for questions. Who would like to go first? Okay.
No, that one's great.
Yeah, this one.
Okay, we're good.
Should I-
We're good.
Use that one, don't matter. Go ahead.
You can just.
Oh, yeah, you can.
Yeah, I need one.
Or you can take it off.
I just wonder why you think all the various parties on council presently have universally bought into the narrative which you're saying they're getting wrong. Not all of them, but many of them are well-intentioned. So what are they missing that they think this is the way to go? And how it's one thing to elect a different party that would have a different view. Why can't they be convinced that this is the wrong way to go?
So, okay, I really don't think that the council as constituted has a real understanding about how to create cities. I don't think they have an understanding of how to create affordable housing. And they're not listening to their staff. And what they're doing is hiring people that will just, confirm their own narrative.
But
Aren't there staff in on this too? Josh White is like.
That's what I'm saying. They hire staff that will conform to their own narrative. So, that it is, it's really unfortunate. And I know the junior staff are really terrified. Like they don't feel like they can have any kind of say in this. So, when we really created a great city was when we had that, that it was the elected officials, the planners, and the citizens were all working together. They really had a common vision. Now it is so splintered, it is so fractionalized, and I am really concerned. I mean, you would think that some of them would, some of the parties would actually see that maybe this is not the best way to go, but they haven't. So that's why I'm just saying I really don't think we should have a party system anymore. I think it should be a ward system. For all the problems with the ward system, yes, there's problems, but this party system is not working for us. Especially, when, we've now had several councils where we've had the, majority of a party who are acted like, they've acted like a caucus, which they're not supposed to do for council. Okay, somebody's trying to get in.
I don't know.
Okay, so somebody, when you look, okay. Yeah, it's upstairs. Okay, so councils are really not supposed to be, in caucus. They're not supposed to be making decisions within a party. This is very much, they're following the pattern of provincially and federally. That's what you do provincially and federally because they have a party. It should not be at the municipal level. And so, we know, I know that they're not listening to us. How could they, hundreds of people for the official, development plan, hundreds of people for the Broadway plan. They all, we all say we don't want it. It's not, you need to rethink it. It's not, it doesn't have the proper infrastructure. It doesn't have, all of these things. It's not going to create affordability. They're not listening. And so, I really feel very disenfranchised from the city right now.
And it was Lanny Zhao who was the councillor that was removed.
Yes, I know. I didn't name him because I'm not.
I did.
So given we're unlikely to get a ward system before, what kinds of things can we do? And a second question, maybe related. Are next people able to get rid of some of the current staff, like Josh White, I might say? Like, can that happen?
Okay, so you really need to be active. You need to get these people accountable, like go to these all candidates meeting and ask some really hard questions and keep pounding them. Because, it's not gonna get changed. I'm just concerned, I mean, like one party has got, I don't see anything happening in the horizon. And, I suspect there will be a change in composition of the council, but I don't see any necessary change in how the decisions are gonna be made.
Like, this seems to be a discussion about what to do in terms of getting people elected that will see things a different way. And in the last by-election, I kind of felt like it was obvious who you should vote for. But when I talked to people that were younger than me, they weren't there.
Yeah.
They were totally voting for Cope, and they had lots of good reasons for doing that. So, like, is there any sort of thinking that there might be some alliance with Cope being a left of center party that has more of a focus on social justice, and Team that has more of a focus on planning in neighborhoods and affordable housing, which I would also think has a bit of a focus on social justice, where you could come together and quit splitting that vote. Like, that to me would get change moving a lot better than, who cares about words? That's not gonna happen. Like, and realistically, Team has just not been able to get people interested because it's perceived as a one issue, elitist kind of party, right?
Yeah.
And,
So I actually would like, I'd like Thomas to answer that question. Because he is a younger person. And why, why are the younger citizens of Vancouver really not going towards a kind of more, a position that I find very surprising, actually.
I can't pretend to be an expert on the matter or
I'm not
anything of the sort, but I hear what you mean. I think if we're talking about the by-election in particular, I think we really have to be looking at the story being one of quite low turnout. And that's been the case in a lot of municipal elections in general. It's been declining since 2014, I believe. The by-election in particular, I think there are a lot of, what was the turnout in that? It wasn't high.
No, 15.
16%. And so I think what we really should be looking at is about why the 85% of the population of Vancouver isn't voting. Probably the young population is overrepresented in that population who isn't voting. So I don't think it's necessarily fair to say that young people writ large are voting for like one city or Cope. I think that's not really a realistic narrative if you look at the makeup of those parties in particular, which is a particular elite in the city of Vancouver. So,
well, that's interesting because I wanted to get those people to vote for Team, and they had a lot of good reasons why they weren't going to do that.
Yeah.
So,
where they based their lives.
Are you asking to stand up when they have their mic?
oh, yeah, you want to stand up?
oops.
Won't sign up for ballet. So last election, we got better city, 100%. All their people got in, and they came in on a wave of getting away from the idea of crime. And so we got one strong answer, which came from rejecting, not liking something. And they put, I think, 200 they had a platform that was broadly appealing to Vancouverites. But once they got elected, all the promises disappeared, and we effectively got an authoritarian situation. And so Ken Sim was given a lot of rope, and it seems he hung himself in many ways. But it's difficult when you're coming, unless you get a really broad group of people rejecting, to get to sweep council. And it's kind of dubious whether that's a good thing. You may win, but the city loses. I think that in the by-election, we saw a rejection of Ken Sim, and the people with the clearest voices were successful. Anyway, thank you.
Got a comment on that, or? Yep.
Well, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, it surprised me that so many people could be duped. I mean, when ABC ran on a campaign of fear and which they're now trying to do again by sort of these dirty tricks. So it surprises me. Yeah.
Hi, can you hear me? Just making sure that I'm not interfering with the speaker. I have two questions, although it's more different versions of the same question. Number one, how do you think the expropriation should work in order to create new housing? And also, on the same length, how would you suppose one would learn how the expropriation pace or policy currently works? Do I have to look at obscure reports from, let's say, Rennie or West Bank or BD, or do I have to go through some obscure freedom of information requests? Just wanted to just wanted to pick your brain on.
Okay, so give me an example of what you're trying to get at. What is there a specific project you're talking about?
Well, you know about the provincial like bills 44, 45, 47 that's going to lead to broad-based rezoning. That's effectively like an expropriation by taxation policy, right? So I'm just curious to learn if you have any thoughts on how to figure out the pace of how quickly this will happen.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the whole development industry is really being upended right now. So I'm not sure how many projects are going to go ahead that they in the next little while, but generally, I don't think we've done expropriation very well here. What happened in the Canada line is, they didn't expropriate and they didn't get necessary. I mean, it's fine what they got. It's not as it's not as bad as it could be. But if they would have expropriated some of that land, it could have actually sort of created a different kind of market and provided a different kind of form of housing. So, but the way that they're doing it provincially, it's not clear to me yet what it is. So if you want to do research on this, I welcome you to do research on it. So.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you, Penny. I enjoyed your talk, and it was a good history lesson and very well encapsulated. Basically, what you stated is public participation was a fundamental tenet of community planning and local government itself for almost 40 years. In Vancouver, that came about through political change in response to the freeway, etc.
Yeah.
Someone mentioned COPE. COPE and team both were birthed around the same time, and it was the original team coming to power under Mayor Art Phillips that brought in open government and accountability, included the hiring of Ray Spaxman as our planning director, even putting up information signs about development, making everything publicly accessible. But really we've gone back to that pre-70s top-down era. But for many people, this is normal. They don't know, younger people I speak to don't know about a different model. They're talking about government coming up with solutions. So one of the reasons I became politically aware late in life is because I've seen really an orchestrated campaign of rhetoric demonizing neighborhoods and the people who live in them to the point that information that should be readily available is buried deep in the cellar. And public hearings have essentially been made illegal by the provincial government. We talk about firing people, that's not really our job, but we have to realize that City Hall isn't just council. So the current bureaucracy was designed to deliver on a political mandate. And I remember I was at an event where Tom Davidoff was speaking, and he basically said to the audience, we should be happy to have an opportunity to provide input once every 4 years. So, and the other thing is politics is completely polarized around land development as though there was no other aspect to community. So my objective is to put community back into community planning, but maybe it's not a fair question for you, maybe it's more for the audience, but what do you think it will take to re-empower the people?
Any ideas? You have something, okay.
I'm gonna be facetious, I think we should separate.
Separate.
I think all the neighborhoods should segregate from the rest of the city. If Alberta can do it, if Quebec wants to do it, I think you can do it, right? I mean, it's a joke, but yeah. Maybe not.
Hi everyone, my name is Wendy. I'm hearing comments constantly about the turnout in the last by-election, and I think to give credit to the people of Vancouver, there was a lot of enthusiasm around that. I campaigned for Team, and I was out on the street right up until the polls closed, all over the place, talking to people. And the number of people that didn't.
Could you hold the mic a little closer to your mic, no, even closer?
It's kind of ringing.
He'll turn it on. Yeah.
Okay. The number of people I ran into who had given up trying to get to a poll.
Yeah.
Because the waits were 3 hours plus, including for me, when I went to vote at the end of it, I waited in line for 3 hours. So I have trouble believing that wasn't deliberate, setting up polling stations that could not service the needs of the voters. So, I think it's not fair to sit in judgment or look at the percentage returns of voters from that experience. And I just hope we learn from it for next time. Yeah.
So I want to respond to the person about what could be done is, the people here, if you all sort of went and sort of made a thoughtful idea about what you could do to actually get 10 other people engaged, 20 other people engaged in civic politics and talk to them about what are the other alternatives? There are so many other alternatives. We don't have to have this top-down, authoritarian regime that we are now in, which I'm worried, and I don't see, and this has been going on not just with ABC, but it was even before ABC. We had that. So I think we need to kind of be really rethinking how does city council really function? Because I don't think it's functioning at all right now. So
I would also, can I add on to that?
Yeah.
Because with respect to the by-election, I've done some research on this personally through my own quantitative work, and you're absolutely right, it did constitute voter suppression, like what was done in terms of mismanagement of planning the by-election. Like if you had the previous election, there were 50 stations, voting places throughout the city. It was cut to 25 for the by-election. They were redistributed in a manner which was not reflective of the voting density in the city. And so it was completely negligent, it was irresponsible, and it led to a lot of people being unable to vote.
How many?
So probably my estimate was about 30,000 people weren't able to vote.
So, I mean, this is where, I mean, this city's council, this, you know, this party was playing to the playbook of you know, to our south. I mean, that's the kind of state playbook, you know, suppress voter turnout, you know, lie to people, you know, tell them what they want and then lie, you know, then, I mean, then, you know, then do exactly the opposite, you know. Yeah.
And you know, I didn't know the history of, oh, I'm sorry, should I say that? Okay. I didn't know the history of Vancouver, and I'm wondering how many people don't, so the kind of review that you did. And I'm wondering if it would be worth doing something like that for City Hall Watch to present that different model.
Okay, sure.
You know,
I could
that
do
would be helpful, but I think just to let people know there is a different model. This doesn't have to be the way it is.
Yeah, I mean, I did suspect that a lot of people didn't know about local area planning. You know, it was, and you know, it was, I mean, Kitsilano happened to be, I would say, one of the most successful of the local area planning. I mean, it's not an easy process. It takes years, but what we got after that was a community that we all really loved.
Hi, I'm actually a member of one of the local neighborhood associations, and the reason that Kitsilano was well informed is we have about 450 people on our email list, and we send out local information. But what the city staff failed to do during this ODP was there was only 100,000 residents being affected, and they didn't notify anyone by mail. There was very little information, and I was expecting a massive turnout, but nobody knew. I think maybe I was number 56 to speak, and they were nearly at the end of the list. But there was 180 who wrote in and were opposed to it. So what the city is doing is just not providing the public with information.
Yeah.
And everyone is kind of looking at what's happening in the States, that kind of stuff. So unless we have someone who's paying attention to what happens in Vancouver, City Hall Watch is excellent, but we just don't have enough people reading it to know what's going on. So people are operating in the dark. I don't know what we can do about that.
No, I agree, and I mean, that's been, if you look at, and maybe Thomas might know as well, that you know, since this party has been in majority, they have slowly, you know, lessened our access to City Hall and to City Hall information. So.
I'm Gwyneth, I live nearby. One, could somebody explain what City Watch is? I know vaguely, but there may be some people here who don't, for information. Two, I hear there appears to be overwhelming support for Wendy's concern about general need for adequate polling numbers and availability during elections. And perhaps I don't know how many people we are in the room, perhaps we could do a show of hands to show people, you know, come up with something very quickly as an outcome of tonight, saying that the people gathered here tonight are extremely concerned and count on increasing access to polling stations, availability. I also in the last election stood for hours, and I was amazed at the young families with kids who hung in there. But maybe you could, I don't know if that's appropriate if you could pull something like that together, but do a show of hands tonight and give feedback on behalf of Local Focus to council, saying that that's what we acted on. But so City Watch, if we could explain what that is.
Yeah, City Hall Watch is it's a website that has the latest kind of news on what is happening at City Hall. So just go on to, you know, just do, Google City Hall Watch. I hate to use the word Google, but just City Hall Watch, and you will see it, and you could become, you can get all the information you want there. It's a good source of information.
It's actually a great thing. It's kind of like a magazine format where you have the latest things happening within city government and the city, and also articles of interest to Vancouverites in their local neighborhoods. It's actually a really good site. Check it out.
Yeah. So, and the other thing about, the reason why they could do that, because it was a by-election, they have a lot more leeway, I think, for by-elections to sort of limit the polling stations, because they don't expect, historically, they don't expect that great a turnout. And so when for a general election, there is polling there is polling stations in all places. So I don't think that's going to be as big a problem as it was for the by-election.
I think 20 on the east side and 4 on the west side is a big problem.
It's a big problem, yes, because I remember it was where I voted was in the kids' high school, and there was a long wait list for that.
Somebody had the bright idea to only have polling stations in the community centers, which was like the stupidest idea.
Right. Yeah.
And that's what really went wrong. So rather than just say we need these many here and these many here, they decided, let's do it in the community center. So usually I've worked a lot of civic elections and they have them all over. So I think it will be fine.
Yeah.
That part of it anyway.
Yeah.
And the staff, the election staff at the city are really good.
Yeah,
But this was way beyond what they could handle.
And I agree.
Hi, my name is Gordon. Looking around the room, we're older folks.
Yeah.
Speaking to the younger demographic who may vote in a lot fewer numbers. I have a much younger partner who's always on Instagram, can't get off it. And looking and hearing, I listen to the CBC all the time. I follow whatever I can around media coverage. The message has to be compelling, emotional, and not too complicated.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
however that can happen,
yeah,
and using social media like Instagram, might reach, like I'm on Facebook with my local neighborhood folks. I get emails from the Fairview Action Committee. I watch City Hall Watch, but it's all kind of fragmented.
Mm-hmm.
And then, the CBC pulls in, the defamation thing with the mayor, and it grabs people's attention. Not that you're going to get that kind of emotional pull all the time, but whoever's in charge of messaging have to sort of reach through different channels and in different compelling ways.
Yes, we are a different generation. There is a clump of little younger people over there, but I agree. I mean, we're losing the other generation. They've given up. They are just into survival and having a good time. It's expensive to live here. They want to live here, and they are trying whatever way they can. And they don't really think about maybe the larger implications. And the thing is that doing planning is not an easy soundbite. When I see Kitsilano, I see a well-planned community. But maybe people don't see that. They just see, the beaches and there's great restaurants and all that. They don't see what makes it really, really function. So, Donna.
Yeah, thanks, Penny. I'm just wondering about supportive housing and your perspective on supportive housing, given the huge need for supportive housing in Vancouver, particularly for people with mental health and addictions problems, and then the quite strong NIMBYism in Kitsilano and opposition to almost every proposal that's come up. What would be a proposal you would think might fly in this?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I mean, I was quite surprised when that happened, when there was such strong opposition. And people are talking, what Donna's referring to is the project at West 8th and Arbutus that got, there was actually a court challenge that a citizens group took the provincial government to court, and then the provincial government just backed off. And so I just, my gut reaction is, well, they should just have, it should just be, they should just have allowed it and everything. And I've talked to some people, including some of, that I feel would have a really good understanding, and felt that it really was, that it was not really thought out well. And again, you needed to have the community engagement part at the beginning. You needed to kind of get them to work through things like what happened on Broadway and West 4th Avenue with development, that has really fit into the neighborhood. You work with, you do a give and take. And so maybe lower density might have worked, maybe, all of these things. So it was unfortunate, and I don't think the provincial government and BC Housing really handled it well. And I think it was a loss for our neighborhood and for the people who really need supportive housing.
Penny, my name is Paul. I just want to thank you for your overview. That was great. And I'm surprised that nobody here has brought up the question to you about how this is going to go forward, given the recent contract agreements between the federal government and the Musqueam band about fee simple.
Right.
Who owns this property now?
Yeah. So again, I mean, I think that's, I can't really talk to that, because I think that's something that has to be explained a lot better. It doesn't, the Musqueam is saying that it's not going to affect anything. And there has been no explanation really that I can understand. So, I mean, I'm not a lawyer, so I'd have to read. Maybe somebody here who's a lawyer who's actually read it might know better. So
we just have one last question here.
Okay.
So we have one way to stop the ODP. Still, it has to pass Metro Council. I believe it's next week. Try and stop it there.
It's already been passed.
But telling people to ask questions at the candidates meeting, ABC didn't show up. It's the last election.
That's right.
They got elected anyways.
Yeah.
We could withhold taxes. We could withhold rent, or we could lie down. We could sue them, or we could lie down in front of bulldozers. Thank you.
Okay. That's a good way to end. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for coming out tonight and listening to Dr. Gurstein and asking questions, and coming here for this dialogue, because that is what community planning is all about. Once again, we do have a series of 12 expert talks coming up every Wednesday. Our next one is in Mount Pleasant. It's with Mike Mangan, and Mike is a retired real estate lawyer, author of the Condominium Manual, and former adjunct law professor. And she will explain how City Council has step-by-step excluded the voices of residents in the way Mount Pleasant develops and what residents can do about it. And that will be at the Anza Club at 7 p.m. next Wednesday.
That's it?
Done like dinner.
That's it? All right. It worked? Good work.
I don't know, we'll see what the audience comes to after. Do you know what's gonna happen?
No, I have no idea.
No.
I would think that most of the young people who want to get out and vote. I gotta remember how old we were 15 years ago. How old they were young. They're like 10, 11 years old. All they've known is top down leadership. All they've known is party leadership.